Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be telling you how to create a catapult from scratch in TinkerCAD. Pretty easy process, but there are a few steps to get there. So first, always change the file name after you create a new design. So we want to make sure that we put in there our first and last name, your partner if you have a partner as well, dash catapult. After we do that, it's important that we edit the grid. Change it from units to millimeters to inches. The width should be 24. And the length should also be 24. Update grid. Last thing we need to do before we start modeling is change the snap grid to 1/8, or from 1/8 to 1/64, so we can line things up a little bit easier. Alright, now with that all set up, we're going to be basically using probably just the box and cylinder. So we take a box, place that here on the work plane. The overall size, keep the thickness of it and the height, which is this dimension here, 1 inch. When it comes to the overall length, you have to do some educated guessing or guesstimating. I'll suggest you grab a ruler and figure out how big you want the pieces to be. Don't make them too small, but at the same time don't make them too big that you're using up too much wood. So for my side piece for the base, which is the first part I'm constructing, I want to make these pieces 13 inches long. So I'll type in 13. It's going to make it the proper length. And then we have to make a second piece. So Control-C, Control-V for copy and paste. I'm going to line it up, put it on the other side. I can use the align tool as well to make sure they're all lined up. There we go. And then the next thing we need to do is construct the front and the back. So again, construct the front and the back, keep everything 1 except for the overall length. So for the front and the back, I think I'm going to make this around 6 inches. Type in 6, hit enter. And this part might be a little bit tricky, but we have to try to place it so it's all lined up in the perfect area. It might be a good idea and helpful if you use the arrow keys to place things or move them around. That just makes things a little bit more precise and easy. Okay, perfect. After you get one side done, as always, copy and paste, Control-C, Control-V, and then just move it to wherever it has to go. So for this one, I have to adjust it and make sure it goes over to the right spot. So it looks like I have to move it out. Oh, too far. A little bit in, and then move it to the side just a tad more. Boom, perfect. Alright, now that the base is constructed, since we have two different type pieces here, you can do this is optional, but usually what I like to do is just change them so they're a different color. Just makes things a lot easier for later when we do labeling. So we have red, we have orange. Next thing I have to do is I want to make upright support pieces. That way my catapult has some support, and we can attach like the lever arm, the stopper, and the dowel rod a little bit later. So again, we're going to take a box. We're going to place it close to where we want it to go. I think for the overall height, because it's going to go up, I want to make it around, I'm just going to take an educated guess here, maybe look at my ruler. 8 inches seems good to me. After it's 8 inches, to make sure that it's centered, make sure that you use your align tool. So we want to make sure we select both of these. Align it right in the center, and then center again. Perfect. And then we can duplicate this or copy and paste it, and move it to the other side. And just keep repeating that process. Okay, there we go. Get it close. Doesn't have to be perfect. Align it one more time. And that part's good. Now, these two pieces are alike, but they're different sizes from these pieces down here. So what I need to do is I'm going to go through the process of just changing the colors, and this just makes things easier in the later steps. So change it. So you want to do green for this one, green for that one, because they're both the same size. Good. And now we need a piece that goes across the top as a stopper, since this is what like a mangonel looks like. So I'm going to take my work plane, stick it on top. Again, grab a box, stick it on top as well. And it has to go from here over to this side. So I'm going to get pretty much close, and it looks like it's going to be almost 8 inches. So I'm going to just make this an even 8. Hit enter. And then just to make sure things are aligned, I'm going to use my align tool as well. So I'm going to select this side piece right here, hold down shift, side piece right there, align it, just like that, and we're good. Next thing we want to do is we want to put a dowel rod on here. that goes across from one side to another. Take the work plane, stick it on the inside. Cylinder goes in here as well. The diameter of it is already 1 inch, so we don't have to mess around with that. The only thing we have to do is stretch it from one side to the next. So over here, we're just going to make it an even 6 inches. Now when it comes to placement, you can stick it really wherever you want. It doesn't matter top to bottom. Usually just for modeling purposes, I try to keep it in the center somewhere. Just like that. Again, I'm going to change the color. This is going to be a bluer color. And I think the next thing I want to do is I want to make my ball holder that goes across here. So for that, click on the work plane. I'm going to stick it down here on top. It really doesn't matter at this point where it goes. And it's probably going to be around the same length as this, but I'll just do it from scratch just to make it easy on us. And if you want like a lot of power and leverage for your catapult, you want to make this part pretty long. So for this, I'm going to make my lever arm 14. Hit enter. And then I want to go through the process of just moving it close to about where it should go. And we want to make it so it goes through, like the dowel rod goes through that piece of wood. So I'm going to take this, raise it up, like that. Make sure it's pretty close, it's not sticking out both sides like right there, it's sticking out a little bit. So I have to move it down just a touch. Perfect. And just keep it like that. You don't have to bend it or like change direction of it or tilt it or anything like that. Change color. I want to make this a little bit of a darker blue. Now I have to make the ball holder, which goes on top, right here in this area. For the ball holder, most of you are just going to be using a water bottle that's cut in half. A torus or a tube work just fine. Not going to modify, just stick it right in there. Change the color. And the last thing I think I want to do is I want diagonal supports. Now this is optional, you don't have to have this in your project, but you can. So in order to do this, there's not any specific way you can do it. You just kind of have to piece it together one shape at a time. So we're going to use a box again. And usually I try to make it the same height as this guy right here. Just a little bit longer, so that one's 8. I try to make it like maybe, let's say 10, just to be safe. So we're going to click on that. Type in here 10, hit enter. Boom, just like that. And we can always resize a little bit later if we need to. And I need to tilt it about the right angle that we need. After I do that, I need to move it close to where it should go. And you have to use the cone to maybe sink it down a little bit. Be very careful with this. Usually the arrow keys really come in handy. Okay, that's done. And you see how this part's kind of messed up here? This is what I would suggest. Probably bring this down a little bit more. Maybe zoom in and take this part and drag it in just a touch. About right there. And to get this kind of like disappeared and get rid of it, we're just going to bring it back so it's like kind of like shrunk behind like that. And then I can raise it up if I need to about right there. Perfect. So that one's good. And since this is going to be a different, oops, I forgot to change this up here. That's going to be, instead of red, let's make it pink or purple. Perfect. And this color, I think I'm going to change it to a brown. Alright, now since this one's perfect, Control-C, Control-V, very handy. So copy and paste. And just drag it over to the other side. And get it close to the spot that you need it. So that one is pretty much, that's spot on right there. Perfect. Now when it comes to like screws, glue, nails, rubber bands, stuff like that, you don't have to put on your project. You just have to get it as close as possible. Now if you're doing like a ballista type catapult with an inclined plane, your dimensions like that 1 inch are going to be a little bit different, so just make sure you model it correctly. Same thing with the bow arms. You might have to get creative and cut things apart using custom shapes. And if you're doing like a trebuchet, you might have to create like a custom like shape for example, the counterweight. But that's basically how you create a catapult from scratch.